And see. So it's great to hear and see everyone this evening. I'm Kathy Wesley, and I'm going to be your presenter tonight. And I'm working from this book, A Guide to Shamatha and Vipashyana Meditation by Thrangu Rinpoche. And we have gotten up to page 15. We're just racing through the text, and which means not anyway. But I wanted to take a moment this evening because last time we talked a little bit about shamatha meditation techniques, and tonight I'm going to share one with you. On page 15, Thrangu Rinpoche talks about what he's basing his teachings on. And he says in the very first paragraph on page 15, he says, there are many ways to practice shamatha, which is calm abiding, and vipassana, which is insight. Shamatha, vipassana. Or if you want to use the Tibetan words, shinay, Shinay, for tranquility, and laktong, Lhaktong, Laktong for insight. Shamatha, Vipashyana. Shine, Laktong. So many different words. It's so confusing. So this is why I like to try to use the Sanskrit ones because those are the ones that are more familiar to everyone. So Shamatha is the calm abiding, and Vipashyana is the insight. So he says there are many ways to practice these. And here he says we will be using methods used in the Mahamudra or Great Seal tradition. Maha means great. Mudra has lots and lots of meanings because I know many of you who practice Tibetan Buddhism will know hand mudras, but that's not what this one is. This one, this one means seal, like the seal of authenticity on a document. And so the Great Seal is the method. He says the reason to teach Mahamudra methods is that when His Holiness the 16th Karmapa came to the West in the 1970s and the 1980s and was asked what practice would be most appropriate for Western people, busy people who are working and having families and doing all of the busy things we do, he said that he felt the most appropriate practice was Mahamudra. And he said, but it's not just appropriate for Westerners, but for people everywhere. And he said it has two parts, the common preliminaries and the actual practice. And so he said it suggested we do the preliminaries before beginning any meditation practice. And he said these can be done in a minute or two and are basically reminding ourselves why we are meditating. And so he covers the common preliminaries first, where he talks about reflecting on why am I meditating? And so he said, my teacher, Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche, told us that it's really important to know why you are doing something before you do it. Makes a lot of sense, right? So he's saying, Thrangu Rinpoche is saying, you just have to do these for a few minutes. You don't have to like sit for hours and hours on end. But at the beginning of every session of practice, after you have recited a prayer of taking refuge in the Buddha as the teacher, the Dharma as the path, and the Sangha as the community, the refuge prayer, after doing that, then you can actually begin to reflect on why you are sitting and why you are meditating. And these, very simply put, are how lucky we are to have this precious human life that we have, how lucky we are to be alive right now, and how lucky we are to have this precious opportunity to practice Dharma. And the second one is impermanence, reflecting on, even though we're incredibly lucky to be alive and to be able to practice Dharma, it is not without an expiration date. That impermanence means that things will always be changing for us, and so it's good to practice right now while we have the opportunity. The third of the reflections is that karma, action, cause, and result, are operating in our lives, meaning that we may have a precious opportunity to practice Dharma and meditation, and we may understand that that opportunity has a limited time span. But sometimes we get so busy with things that we don't take time to meditate. And what my teacher, Khenpo Rinpoche, said one time is, all we are doing in this lifetime is making habits. We're making habits of how we live our life day to day. We're making habits with the things we think about day to day. We're making habits with what we say day to day. We're making habits with what we do day to day. So the more habits we have that are positive, nourishing habits for ourselves and for all of those around us, the better. So the point of the teaching of reflecting on karma, action, cause, and result, is that we want to make good patterns and we want to make good habits, and may we do that. That's our wish and aspiration. And then the last thing that we reflect on is the defects of worldly life. Now, I know worldly life can be pretty good on some days. You know, you're looking out at the ocean and the sun is shining, and it feels like it's a pretty darn good deal to be here in this world. But the Buddha called this world samsara, meaning that dissatisfaction is sort of woven into our experience of day-to-day life, especially when our experience of day-to-day life is colored with what he called the three mental poisons: attachment, aversion, and ignorance. Because we're not Buddhas, that means we experience basic ignorance. We don't know what we're doing here, and we don't know what life is all about. And because we don't know what we're doing and we don't know what life is all about, we look outward and we think that, oh, happiness, I have to get more stuff to be happy. And then, now I've got all this stuff, I have to have a place to put all this stuff. And I have to have other people to share my stuff with. So we get so busy that we don't really get time to reflect on what it is to be alive and to be human. And so these four reflections help us focus. Reflecting on how, no matter how much we have been through in this life, we're still here. And we still have the potential to practice Dharma and to attain Buddhahood ourselves, to attain an experience of calmness at the very least, and perhaps to even see through the illusion and delusion of worldly life into our own possibility of enlightenment. And the only way to do this is to remember that the busyness of worldly life is not the goal. We may be very outwardly oriented, but we need to remember that the outward orientation has limits, and that worldly happiness can only last for so long before it changes, and that's why it's called samsaric or worldly happiness. It's always changing. Remember those first three? We have a precious opportunity. It has a limited time frame. Karma is gonna be working on us because we're making habits all the time, and we better make good ones. And then the last one is worldly life, as good as it may be, has its drawbacks, so we can't let worldly accomplishment be the be-all and end-all of our life. So reflecting on this, now some people say, wow, that is a real bummer. Why are you like making me think about stuff that makes me sad? But the fact of the matter is, we have to have a little bit of sadness. Call it a homeopathic dose. You know how homeopathy works? It's where you take something that that engenders the thing you're trying to cure, but you take it in such a small amount that your body knows how to work with that foreign thing. And so we want to be Buddhas and we have sincerity, but we get really distracted by stuff. So we need to take a homeopathic dose of sadness with the whole construct in order to allow ourselves to take a few minutes on a regular basis, like hopefully every day, to practice at least a little bit of meditation and Dharma. So that's what he covers on page 15. He talks about the precious human birth, the impermanence, the defects of samsara, and karma. So, do you have any questions about the four thoughts? Are you okay with taking a homeopathic dose of sadness, or would you like to have a different idea? Anybody have questions or thoughts about the four thoughts?
Kathy, it's Marcia. I have a question on the fourth one because that gets into the possessions and our worldly life, it's impossible to not have possessions, right? That otherwise you're homeless. And
Yeah,
even if
I
you're
know.
homeless, you still have possessions because you have to have shelter. You have to have shelter. You have to
Right,
have certain,
right.
clothes to go to work. You have to, and
Me too. I have work clothes.
yeah, I mean, at what point I mean, I can see,
Yeah,
when you look at the extreme wealth of people and that's a good example, of how much do you need
yeah,
kind of thing and giving
right.
back, us commoners, I'm certainly not a wealthy person, but I have the things that are around me that make me feel comforted and happy and good with my life. But is that wrong?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. Go ahead. Ask the rest of the question. I'm sorry.
no, that was it. That was kind of where I want to hear your take on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we have to recognize is that worldly things have their limitations.
Mhm.
And I think it's more like that. It's not like we're supposed to leave all worldly things behind. I mean, as human beings, we tend to think in terms of all or nothing.
Mm,
I'm either going to become completely worldly or I'm going to go and become a complete renunciate. We don't really do middle very well. You see what I mean? This is why
mhm,
we need to reflect on the shortcomings of worldly existence. You may not want to give up your things, but you should reflect on kind of the sadness that you need all those things. You see what I'm saying? It's like we're not being asked to become like super depressed. We're just asked to, I guess you could say, focus on what's going to help us the most. And so if we're in the mind of thinking I'm either going to be completely worldly and I'm not going to do any dharma at all whatsoever, or I'm going to become a complete renunciate and become homeless and all that kind of stuff. We
mhm,
can't live in this kind of world because the world is like this is even the Buddha had to find what he called a middle path, right? He lived in luxury for the first part of his life and he didn't find enlightenment there. And then he lived in utter deprivation and he didn't find Buddhahood there. He had to actually take a middle path of some comfort. But the
mm,
fact of the matter is, I think what this reflection is telling us to do is to realize when we're getting when we're investing too much in our stuff.
mm, mm,
Recognize when we're going too far with investing in our stuff. You know what I mean? Like when we begin to become envious of other people's stuff.
mm,
Or if we think, oh, I've just got to get more and more and more. It's the idea is that we're supposed to do our best to be comfortable and to take care of the people who rely on us. I mean, we're not being asked to give up our children, you know, or or the people we're taking care of. We're being asked to see the limitations of only going for worldly success.
mm.
Does that make sense?
That's helpful. Yeah. I mean, I
Middle path.
feel if there was a fire and I lost everything, it I don't feel it's like, oh well, then you move on. I don't. it would be sad, but not really. I mean, it doesn't change my life and my existence to not have what I have.
Yeah.
It's
And
stuff to deal with that I'd like to pare down, but you know.
yeah. Well, and the other part of it is self-honesty.
Mm,
This is why we have to reflect on the preciousness of life and the impermanence of life and the karma and so forth, because we seldom reflect on these things because they do make us a little sad.
they're
And
scared. Yeah.
well, sure, but in a way, being honest with ourselves about what we find objectionable about this is probably healthy.
Mm,
It's probably healthy to recognize that there are limits to the things we have in this world and that maybe there's something more for us out
mhm,
there. Maybe there's something to be had by living a life of compassion and love.
mhm.
Yeah, so
Yeah. Thank you for that dialogue. Yeah.
it's not all or nothing, and so you
Right.
can't say, well, if I can't be all or nothing on this subject, I don't want to be anything at all. That's kind of being a little narrow. And so I have friends who are in 12-step recovery,
Uh-huh.
and they talk about, their higher power, like what helps to restore them to sanity. And in Buddhism, that higher power is refuge. The Buddha as the enlightened one who shows us how to live, and the Dharma as the teaching, and then the Sangha as the community. And so when we are like really feeling uncomfortable in life, we need to kind of examine what we're taking refuge in. Am I
Mm,
taking refuge in that other person's opinion of me? You know, am I taking refuge in things and,
mm.
instead of what's like inside me? What's my higher purpose and so forth. Does that help?
Yeah, that's really interesting conversation. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Just a little bit
Yeah.
of just a little homeopathic dose of sadness. Don't take too much. Uh, thanks for that. Other
Yeah, thank you.
questions, other questions that people might have.
A quick question.
Yes.
Why is it so easy to get in the bad habits and not like the habit of meditation? Like it's a good habit, but I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
I think it all has to do with framing. How do we
mhm.
frame it? You know? And sometimes we get our life is so speedy because we have to work to work to work to work to work to work to make a living. We have to work so darn hard to make a living. And then because we have to work so darn hard to make a living, we get into this frenetic pace. So that when we're not doing frenetic pace, we worry that something is wrong, like what am I not doing because I'm like actually relaxed, you know? And so I have a friend who recently went to Disney with their family, and it was like, it was a lot, you know. And so what we have to, I think that it's not that it's hard to do things where we take care of ourselves, but it's hard to do things where we take care of ourselves. So we have to frame it in a different way, that we're doing it for the benefit of all sentient beings.
Mhm.
It's like I am doing this practice of quiet sitting meditation of shamatha, not just for myself, but I'm doing it for all sentient beings. May all beings become happy, and may all beings become free, and may I become happy, and may I become free, and may we all become Buddhas. Keep it small, keep your ambitions with it small. Just like I'm going to do 5 minutes, or I'm going to do 21 mindful breaths every day, and make the goal so small that you can't help but get it. Does that make sense?
That's perfect.
Yeah,
I like that. Thank
because worldly success is a lot of how we define ourselves right now, because it's all we've ever known. We've never known anything else. And so, of course, it's not easy, but if we can make um, Dharma, a priority, I'm going to sit here for like 2 or 3 minutes and do 21 mindful breaths, like right now. and that can really be helpful. Make the pieces really small. Okay, there's time for one more. These are good questions. Okay, then we hop back in.
Lama Kathy.
Yes.
I do have just like an observation about that my renunciation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I go to Chöling to do beignets up near Fresno, and over the years, there's more and more people that are living there who are young Americans.
I'm
And I
having a hard
talked,
time. I'm so sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing you clearly, and I don't know if it's my hearing aids.
can you hear me better?
Try again and go slowly.
Can you hear me better now?
I can hear you pretty well, so give it a shot.
Yeah. Once in a while, I go to Chöling to do beignets.
Sarah Chuling. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I noticed that there's more young Americans that are living there. And I've like asked them what they've been doing, how they got to live there. And they're people who just became so immersed in the Dharma and asked Rinpoche if they could live there. And he says, sure, when you're ready, come up, get rid of everything, and you're going to be living in this room, which is about the size of a small bedroom. And it's just been impressive to me to see people just give up almost everything that won't fit in their car and come up and live there.
Oh, okay. And so you're talking about people, Westerners living at a Dharma center in California, where the Lama said that sure, you can come and live here if you are willing to give up everything. So that's what I heard you say, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's just your observation that you're surprised to see so many people do it.
Yeah, like to have that commitment to the
Yeah.
Dharma where, he says you
Yeah.
have free room and board,
Yeah.
but here's the room you're going to be living in and you're going to be practicing X amount of hours per day.
Right. Well, and here's the thing. I think it's because of our tendency to be like, all or nothing people that we find, things like this a little scary where people give up everything. It seems like, we feel a little judgment on ourselves, like, I can't do that. But the thing is, what we can do is we can rejoice that there are people doing it, which is, I think, why you brought it up, because you're
Yeah.
really impressed by, and so you're rejoicing in the fact that there are people who are willing to do that, right?
Yes.
Got it. Okay. And I think that that's probably the best thing for us to do right now because we're not capable of doing that, right? So what we can do is feel admiration for people who can and say, maybe next lifetime, you know. Uh,
Right.
yeah, my teacher told me one time, Kempo Karthar Rinpoche said, he said, oh, because, always have, these aspirations, for Dharma practice, for being serious Dharma practitioner, always have these aspirations. He said, and then he said, even if you are not able to bring those causes and conditions together to live that kind of life this time, he said, at least you're going to have the intention in your mind. Remember, he said, all that we're doing in this lifetime is making habits. So we will make a habit of admiring people who can be renunciates. We're going to say, hey, I want to be like that someday. Maybe not this lifetime, but at some point in the future, I'd love to have only Dharma as my occupation. That would be a good one.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm sorry about the sound thing. I just have a little trouble with the distortion. There's some distortion in certain microphones that and I just have my hearing aids probably just don't match. Okay. Is that the last one for this part of the conversation? I can't see everybody's um
Um, I have a question,
yeah.
Lama Kathy. This notion of all we're doing in this lifetime is making habits. Is that all we ever do if we are alive? Create habits?
Pretty much.
So
And that's,
it's not, I mean, it's not that there's anything particular about this lifetime that we're making habits, but that the nature of existing in samsara is to make habits if you're not clear about your behavior.
yeah, even if you are clear about your
Even if
behavior, even if you are clear about your behavior, you can make a commitment to doing more good things than bad things.
do thoughts count as habits as well?
No, only if you entertain them. I asked, it wasn't me, but somebody asked Rinpoche about that one time. What about all these idle, weird thoughts that arise? He says, look, he said, he said, a lot of these idle, weird thoughts that come up, he said, it's just the fruition of previous karma. He says, but you don't have to invite them in for a cup of tea, he said. He said, they're not, you can always like look at them coming up saying, whoa, where'd that come from? And then just move on to something more positive,
Not dwell on it.
not
Thank
dwell
you.
on it.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. No, it's like I tell the story sometimes about when I came back from 3-year retreat. I needed a lot of dental work. Okay. So I go to my dentist, and my dentist at that time, he's retired now. He loved to talk while he's working on me, right? And I can't answer because I have all these things because I can't answer. And so he starts telling me about dropping his daughter off to college and how stressful and like separation anxiety, what he was experiencing, right? And then he starts talking about his dreams. Like I dreamed that I was like helping her with this, and I dreamed that I was like doing this, and then I dreamed I was doing that. And he said, "How many dreams can you have in a night?" And finally, when I got all the stuff out of my mouth, I said, "How many thoughts can you have in a day?" And they make just as much sense,
Yeah.
right? Because we're all over the place because it's bouncing off of the walls.
Yes.
But this is why I think it's good to have high aspirations, even if we can't like accomplish these things in our lifetime, to have high aspirations, to do Dharma, to be of benefit to beings. And when I wake up in the morning, I don't do it every day, but I try to say, may everything I do today benefit beings in some way. Even the dumb stuff I do, may that benefit somebody somehow. And may we all become Buddhas. So I've got like two things. May everything I do benefit beings in some way, even though I don't understand it. And may we all become Buddhas. I
Buddhist
mean, you got to aim high, right?
in this lifetime.
And yeah, I mean, we do our
Yeah.
best and try
Yes.
not to overthink
Yeah.
everything. You have to forgive me. I have a head cold, and so
Ah,
I'm engaged in a sniffle fest right now. Oh gosh. But yeah, I think the thing to do is even though we're asked to reflect on the defects of samsara and karma and all of this kind of thing, it's only meant to be a homeopathic dose of sadness. We're not supposed to become really depressed or or feel bad about ourselves. A homeopathic dose of feeling sad might help us to practice. And if it doesn't, well, then go to the rejoicing side of things, right? I rejoice in the renunciation of these other people. I rejoice, and may I be like that someday. And my teacher said, Kemper Bichet said, look, if nothing else, make the aspiration to be reborn in Amitabha's pure realm of Dewa Chen after you pass away. And then he said, even if you couldn't get your aspirations met in this lifetime, he said, you can do it there. He says, it's so much easier. So that's what he said. He said, look, I'm going there and I invite all of you to be there too. So y'all join me there and I'll see you there. And, you know, So I'm heading for that because there's a lot of things I couldn't do in this lifetime, right? So I appreciate that. Okay, you have to excuse me. I have to mute myself for a second because I have I have to do this very human thing. Hang on. Thanks very much. Oh gosh. Okay. So, uh, okay, everybody good? Yeah, I do apologize for not seeing people have hands raised because I can't see all everybody's, picture block. So, the next thing that Thrangu Rinpoche talks about on page 17 is he says, well, now that you've done your preliminary reflection on the precious human birth and all of these things, now that you've done all of that, he said, then it's good to do the posture, a good meditation posture. Now, these days, I have to sit in a chair because I got bad knees. They kind of went bad after 50 years of sitting on the floor. I just didn't, it the fibers are just giving up, you know. So my physical therapist said, "Sorry to tell you this, but it's chair time for you." So I'm not able to do all of these, but you can approximate them. So here's what he says. He says there's the point of how you work with the body and the point of how you work with your mind. The physical posture is called the seven dharmas or the seven postures of Vairocana. Vairocana is the name of one of the five Buddhas, wisdom Buddhas. And he says if we take this, it's called the seven dharmas of the illuminator, because if we take this posture, our mind's natural clarity is enhanced and our mind's nature is greatly facilitated. And so he says, also the five Buddha families are related with the five aggregates or skandhas that go together to make up our sense of who we are. And Vairocana represents the aggregate or the skandha of form. So he is the pure nature of this body that we have, this form body. And so he said we start by sitting on some kind of cushion. For me, it's a chair, but for you, it might be a cushion or even a kneeling bench. I've seen a lot of people use kneeling benches to good effect because it does some of these same things. And so he says the reason we sit to meditate is that it's hard for the mind to come to rest when we're busy walking around, and we get distracted by everything that's surrounding us. And when we're sitting in one place, we have fewer things to distract us. And then we might ask, why don't we lie down to meditate? Well, it might bring the mind to rest, but it also could bring about sleepiness, so it's best to meditate sitting up. So he says you place your legs in one of the cross-legged positions. You can, lightly cross them in front of each other. The athletes can put the left foot on the right thigh and the right foot on the left thigh and sit in what's called the full vajra, or in yoga, it's called the lotus posture. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said, it's great if you can do it, but he said, don't worry about it if you can't. He said, the best time to practice it is not while you are trying to meditate. He said, you need to do it while you are doing something neutral, like watching television. He said, because then you're distracted from any pain you might experience by doing this posture. It's just a hint from your Lama, So then he said, it's great if you can sit like that, but not it's okay if you can't. Then he says, we should not feel, he says, if you can't do any of these postures, he said, don't worry about it not being good to sit in a chair. He said, after sitting down like this, he said, we can put our legs in the posture as best we can. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche said, you have this line up between your hips and your knees so that you have that nice sort of 90-degree angle, or maybe it's a little less than that. And then So then he said the second point of posture is the placement of the hands. Now, in the sutras, they say you can sit them in the gesture that's called even placement, which is where the left hand's on the bottom, right hand's on the top, and the thumbs touch each other. But this is not easy for a lot of Western people to do, because if we can't sit, what Khenpo Rinpoche said, if you can't sit in the full lotus posture, it's really difficult to sit with your hands like this. He says, because when you're sitting in lotus posture, you have some place in the middle where your legs cross that you can like rest your hands on that. He said, but if you can't, he preferred to teach the posture that was favored by Marpa the translator, the teacher of the great Tibetan saint Milarepa, which is where the hands are placed palm downward on the legs. And he said that kind of gives you a triangle posture. You have the seat and the legs, and then your hands are palm downward on the legs. Now, he said you could also touch your thumb to the base of the ring finger and close your hands in a light fist. He said they look like lion's paws, you know. And he said this helps keep your hands warm in cold temperatures and so on. And he said that this way you're a little more balanced as you sit. Then the third point is that you should have a straight, your spine should be straight. But that doesn't mean, like an arrow. It means it has its nice natural curves in it. My friend, the martial arts person, said you can find your proper spot by becoming aware of your breastbone and then moving it up. And that will give you a good shoulder posture without like a hunch, It's almost like you're on a coat hanger, It's like your shoulders are like hung like that. So that's that one. The fourth is he said that the upper arm should be spread like the wings of a vulture. We're not doing that right now. We're doing the hands palm downward on the legs. I'm just saying. Because that is a hunch, and we're not doing that today. There are other ways, there are other things we can do, but this one is not quite happening yet. And then the next one has to do with the chin. That you can tuck your chin in slightly, so like you're making a double chin. Just tuck your chin in, which that straightens out your neck vertebrae. Then, if you have the capacity to do this, you can either allow your tongue to rest in the bottom, in the bottom of your mouth. But you need to rest it, because that takes the tension out of your jaw. So there are two ways to do it. One is to let it rest with the mouth slightly open. Let the tongue rest in the bottom. But the other way is to touch the tip of the tongue to the roof of your mouth behind your front teeth. And that also gives you a slightly open posture. What it does is it relaxes the jaw. And then the final is the gaze. So what he says is, he said this is important because our thoughts tend to follow our gaze. So he said, for this reason, some people find it helpful to meditate with their eyes closed, which is fine, he said. Other people find that closed eyes make their mind dull and sleepy, which is a problem. But the gaze for meditation is to look straight forward. Khenpo Rinpoche said that's probably not the best way to start. He said it's probably better to start with a gaze that's somewhat downward and a few feet ahead of you, and to just gaze generally in that direction. You're not like burning a hole in the carpet in front of you. So he said that that's the gaze, is just general. A general diffuse gaze. So that is the posture, the legs, the seat, the back, the shoulders, hands and arms, the chin, the gaze, and the tip of the tongue. And so what Khenpo Rinpoche said you do is you just place your body in this posture and allow your body to sort of sink into it a bit. He said when you just allow yourself to settle into the posture, he said you might actually find it a little bit pleasant at the beginning, you know? And I'm going to skip over Machik Labdron's posture because I didn't learn it. So he said that, so he's describing that on page 21. It's let's see, a relaxation of the four limbs is that we relax our muscles, our joints, and our sinews and not attempt to maintain our physical posture using muscular exertion. I think that's really a good thing if you can do that while doing the posture. But, you know, at first it's unnatural for us to sit on the floor and it's unnatural for us to sit still. So we tend to hold tension. So what you might do is you might try to do the relaxing at the very beginning. Put your body in the posture and then attempt to settle into it like that. I think that would be a good cross between the two postures. And so then we go to the mental technique, which starts on page 22. And the mental technique is he said, most teachers use the mental technique of following the breath. He said, this method, this is on page 22, under mental methods. He said, this method was originally taught by the Buddha, who said, when thoughts are intense, follow the breath. I think that's like that's our continuous situation. This is to say we concentrate on the breath coming and going. Khenpo Rinpoche and Thrangu Rinpoche did tend to use the words focus and concentrate. I try not to use those and instead say you place your attention on the breath, which is a little softer. You place your attention on the breath. And then he said, normally we have a lot of thoughts running through our mind. And so what will happen is we place our attention on the breath and it stays there, following the breath in, following the breath out, following the breath in, we do that. It'll stay there for a short period of time and then it'll kind of like wander this way or it'll wander this way. It'll wander into the past. It'll wander into the future. It may kind of circle in the present, like, what's going on? How am I doing? But whenever we notice that we're not with the breath, we notice that we can even label it like thinking, let it go, and then gently bring our attention back to the breath and think of that as a fresh start. I may have mentioned this last time. Khenpo Rinpoche said you can have as many fresh starts as you want. There's no limit to how many fresh starts you can have in a session of meditation, because that's how it is. It's episodic. Remember when the dentist asked me how many dreams can you have in a night? And I said, how many thoughts can you have in a day? This is kind of like what it is. If we just have lots of things and each one is brand new, it's, and so we have to work with them as they arise. So this is why we place our attention on an object. And in this case, the breath comes in, goes out. And then we stay with it for as long as it naturally lasts. And then if we start to wander, we notice the wandering, we label it thinking, we let it go, and then gently place our attention back on the breath again for another short period of attention that will be followed by another period of mental wandering. So if we know this is how it works, then it's easier to deal with, because some people think that thinking is bad and it's like destroying my meditation. Oh, my thoughts, they're destroying I have so many, they're destroying my meditation. But that's only if you think that thoughts are your enemy. If you're just like watching your breath and then, oh, I'm thinking about this. Okay, now I'm coming back. Watch your breath again. It's like, oh, now I'm over here doing this. Okay, come back. And we make it not such a big deal. That for me was a game changer. Once I realized that I didn't have to like perform a perfect session of meditation, but just be with my breath as it would come and go, and that when my attention would wander, I would gently bring it back, gently, gently, and then I was learning gentleness, and I was learning returning. And those are the two skills you develop when you're doing shamatha meditation: noticing and being present, and then returning when you wander. Does anybody have questions about this basic technique?
I have a strange question, Lama Kathy.
I
So,
love them. I love strange ones. Let's go.
all right. So I understand the technique. I've always wondered, and what gets my mind wandering sometimes is I'll have an itch. And I'm like, okay, am I supposed to actually scratch this spot? No, come back to the thoughts. Oh no, but if I stop and I do that, am I outside the parameters now? So
You're
told you it was
going
a
to
little strange.
love this. This is totally
Okay.
not a silly question.
All right.
Okay, totally not a silly question, because somebody asked Rinpoche this question, this
Oh,
exact question.
yay.
And then he says, ideally, and it actually was about itching. Okay, I'm just saying. Okay, so okay, yeah, that can happen. He said it could be any kind of physical discomfort. It could be like maybe your knee hurts a little bit, or maybe your back hurts a little bit, or maybe you've got this itch or whatever. You have a strange sensation. And he said, what you do with it is that at first, the first time you feel it, he said, just tell yourself, I don't have to do anything about that.
Oh,
I don't have to do anything about that. And then he said, and then just go back to placing your attention on the breath again, right? And he said, because that way it's not a big deal, right? And he said, if you just say, okay, I have an itch, or oh, okay, I got a little pain. Okay, well, I don't have to do anything about that just now. And then just go back to the breath. And he said, sometimes when you do that, he said, it'll disappear. And he said, but if it doesn't, he
yeah.
said, the next time it comes back, even if it's just a few seconds later, the next time it comes back, he said, you can scratch, or you can shift your position.
Mm,
He said,
okay.
because this way, he said, you're not training in impulsiveness. Oh,
Oh,
I've got an itch. I got to do something about that right now.
yeah.
Right? And
Right.
so he said, this way, he said, you've stretched just a little bit farther than you thought you could.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just a little farther than you thought you could. I'm so glad you asked that
Mhm.
question.
That makes sense because that's come up many a time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have questions or curiosities about the posture and so on?
Kathy, it's Marcia. I just wanted to make a comment. When I first learned to meditate, it was through Ken McLeod. And when they talked about following the breath, it was because you have it till your last breath. It's always there for you. So
Yeah.
I thought that was always helpful.
I really appreciate you mentioning that, because that is kind of with you to the end, right? It's like your companion, your constant companion. So yeah, as long as you can be present, yeah, it's great. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, it's portable. Plus, I mean, it's portable. You don't need special equipment.
Right.
That's great. Awesome. Okay, so other things that people might want to ask about.
Hi, Lama Kathy, it's Dana.
Hey, Dana.
I do have a question about using like your object of meditation, in this case, the breath,
Yeah.
without the posture, like through your day, like let's say you're at the DMV waiting and you just want to
Yeah.
kind of do a meditation, or you can't sleep. Can I lay there and
Yeah.
focus, or is that training the mind to do something that maybe we shouldn't be doing?
Uh, could you give me an illustration? I think I know what you mean, but could you illustrate that for me?
Well,
For
like if I can't,
instance.
for instance, I wake up at 3 a.m. and sometimes I just try to say Mani mantra until I fall asleep. Um, but then sometimes it doesn't work, or so then I'm like, okay, maybe I could focus on the breath and just lay, on my back with my back straight, just trying to,
Hmm.
I'm actually trying to get tired and fall asleep, but using it that way. So I'm like thinking maybe that's not a great idea.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Now I understand. Yeah, thanks for illustrating it for me. That makes, yeah, it like fell into place for me. So, interestingly enough, recently I heard the master Mingyur Rinpoche give a talk about this and talked about this sort of thing. And yes, you can use meditation techniques, as you're going to sleep. But he said he didn't say that you shouldn't do that. And I'm trying to remember because Situ Rinpoche also said something about this. But I don't think there's anything wrong with just being aware of your experience in the moment, to just becoming aware of the breath. You don't have to do anything formal, right? You just become aware. Or the other thing that Mingyur Rinpoche said that you could do is just feel your body as you're lying down. Just feel your body. And he said, if you're sleeping or in a sleep situation, he said you can just feel your body like merging with the bed. It's like it's becoming heavy and merging with the bed, which I just thought was really, that was kind of classy actually. So I would agree that doing something that really brings a lot of attentiveness is probably not as good as like the mantra would be good. That would be, because that's what I've done in the past, when my mind is on idle, when I'm in a bank line or something like that, that then, you can become aware of your breath, and or you can think mantra, or you can make aspirations for everybody who's in line with you. You know, may we all be happy, may we all become Buddhas. Make offerings of beautiful things you experience and see, just you can do that sort of thing. And then the sleeping meditation was kind of nice, that Mingyur Rinpoche taught, so that can also be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
All right, yeah. Yeah, we have time for one more. Is there one more out there?
If no one has one, I have a quick one again.
Yeah, go
Sorry.
go, Lisa.
You
Yes.
you know these little, like Apple, the iPhone has these little meditation. They're quick little 5-10 minute meditation. In addition to my practice,
Yeah.
does that doesn't hurt it any, right? It's a different type of
I don't know
meditation.
because I've never used them. I've never used them, so I don't
Um,
know. You know, but
yeah.
here's the thing. Again, Mingyur Rinpoche said something at a talk that he gave at KTD this year at our home monastery. He said, for something to be meditation, he says there have to be two things present. One is a view and a motivation or an intention, you know? So you have to be like intending to place your attention on something. So if you're intending to place your attention on something and then you return your attention and that sort of thing, it's like this view and intention. Then it becomes meditation. So I would say that if the apps do that, that's great. But if they like have you drift into some kind of reverie, it's probably not so much.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because that was part of the reason that I was looking for a meditation teacher all those years ago, was because I was going to yoga class and they did all of these kind of like guided imagery, like, you're walking on a beach and you meet a wise person and you get advice from the wise person, and it's like, okay, that's fine, but is that, is that
Yeah,
that what I want to be, you know, anyway, so you get the idea. It's like,
yeah.
if it's helping you to do those skills, noticing and returning, and that kind of, if you're working on those kinds of things, just trying
I've
to
been
be
using it.
present.
Yeah, I've been using it just to go to sleep. So I didn't want to like mix my Buddhist meditation with that kind.
I
Is that
wish I
weird?
knew I wish I knew
Yeah,
about that, because I
yeah.
don't do it enough. It's like one of
Yeah.
those things there where, I do think that, Mingyur Rinpoche's sleeping meditation does have some merit. You might
Oh,
you might give that some thought.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because
Well,
of time, we have to stop here for today.
Oh,
And
Lama Kathy, where would we find that sleeping meditation?
oh, I don't know. I'm hoping he has a YouTube somewhere, but the simple version of it, is that he said to really be present with the heaviness of your body. I'm trying to remember because he taught this at KTD. And I'm trying to remember all the details of it, and I can't remember them all. But those are the two things that I remembered, were that, you're to relax your body completely, and then just feel the heaviness of your body, and like you're merging with your mattress, with your bed, dissolving into it like that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh, I see. That's right. Oh, yeah, very good. Daniel is saying a good app for short meditation. Oops, I have to look. I have to find it on. Yeah. For short meditations is the Healthy Minds uh, app or program. Neuroscientists with Mingyur Rinpoche, you can set times for meditation. So there you go. Healthy Minds. Thank you for that. That's great. All right. So, because of time, we'll have to stop here for tonight. But, folks, if you're helping me figure out what page we're starting on next time, we're going to start on page 23, talking about obstacles to meditation next time. And then, so bring your favorite obstacle. If you want to write it down tonight and then put it on a post-it note and stick it on page 23, that's where we'll pick up. Like, what is your favorite obstacle in meditation? And we'll see. Okay. All right. Well, let's dedicate some merit this evening. We gather together all the goodness of this session and dedicate it to all suffering beings, making the aspiration that through this virtue may all beings be free from suffering and become Buddhahood, and becoming Buddhas, may they emanate in all directions and benefit sentient beings endlessly. Here's the short prayer. Through this merit, may all achieve the omniscience of Buddhahood. May it defeat our common enemy, wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may we free all beings. May we free all beings. May we free all beings. Thanks, everyone. Yes, all the best.
thank you.
Okay,
Thank
take
you.
take
Thank you.
take good care, and
Thank
we'll
you,
be
Lama
seeing you.
Kathy.